The Elements of Harmony and Saviors of Worlds, Chapter 6, by Arcade Striker 5. The relative calm of a late afternoon, early evening in Ponyville was disturbed as Megan burst out from the edge of the everfree forest, panting. She dropped to her knees, shoulders heaving. Need to get back. Need to sleep. She gasped out. Her face was red, and sweat was plastered from blonde hair onto her head. She held up her arm and checked her watch. And if time flows the same here at my home, my kids got out of school an hour ago, got home, and found a note. She rolled her eyes and head dropped. Oh, it's going to be so awkward back home. Death flew over as the rest emerged behind her. She waved a hoof in the air. Come on, she said, sighing. How awkward can it be that you left to help someone? Megan looked up and turned her head, glaring at the Pegasus. Holes in the fabric of time and space being created by supersonic pegasi and leaving a solid rainbow are not everyday occurrences back home. She rose to her feet, knees still shaky. Megan placed her rifle on the ground. It pulled off her backpack and pulled an energy bar from her pouch, opening it up and taking a bite. Not to mention trying to explain where I've been. She gestured around the outskirts of town, even as the other ponies began wandering out to see all the commotion. Twilight galloped to Megan. She turned around and stared up at the sky, squinting. There it is, she said as she caught a glimpse of the hole in the sky. She looked to Megan. Are you ready? A voice rang out, and, catching everyone's attention, now hold it right there! An older mare shouted, walking forward. She was a tan-colored earth pony with a gray mane, small glasses clipped to the end of her nose, a caveat around her neck, and a tied-up scroll for a cutie mark. What has been going on, Twilight? Mayor of Ponyville asked, gesturing to the hole in the sky with a hoof, then the patch of ash still covering the ground. We have had reports of sonic rainbows. The dragon you said would be no problem assimilating the town, and... Her voice trailed off as she took in Megan. Hello. Megan grinned back at Mare, blinking twice. Hello, she said, waving. She picked up her backpack, rifle, and knelt down. Twilight, now will be a good time. Twilight looked to Megan, then to Mare, then to Megan again. Finally, she craned her neck around. Pinkie Pie! She shouted. As soon as the pink pony appeared, she looked back to the mayor and chuckled. I would love to explain what's been going on, but circumstances beyond my control dictate that someone else will have to fill you in. She wrapped a foreleg around the mayor and one around Pinkie Pie, drawing them close together. I'm sure you understand. Places to go, things to do. She let the two go and backed up. Pinkie Pie, please fill in the mayor with what has happened. Pinkie Pie bounced up and down, even as the mayor backed up. Ooh! I can't wait to fill you in on everything that's happened! The mayor turned on her hind legs, but Pinkie Pie somehow appeared right in front of her, sliding up to her. Well, I was born to the Pie family in a rock farm near the border with the Dragon clans. We were Mennonites and working to tilling the soil for chances for dragons. Now, as Mare hung her head and walked off, Pinkie Pie bounced right alongside her. Albazak looked at Twilight and arched the eyebrow. You don't realize she's going to evict you from the library, right? Twilight snorted and glanced to her left to the far-off city of Caroline. No, she won't. She looked at Spike. Staying? Spike shrugged her off. Hey, I don't think even the princess can send letters to where you're going. He suddenly ran forward and threw his stubby arms around Twilight's neck and crest, hugging her. Just be careful. Twilight leaned into the hug and smiled. I will. She looked to Megan, who was staring at Spike with watery eyes. Megan? Megan cleared her throat and wiped her eyes. Yes, just some dust. She retrieved her backpack and rifle and knelt down. Ready? Her mouth twisted slightly. Thanks. Twilight closed her eyes and concentrated where she was now and where she wanted to go. A mental image of Megan's yard formed in her mind. There was a bright flash of light, and the two fans from Ponyville and Equestria. Albazak glanced up at the sky, and Celestia sun from underneath her hat. I hope you'll be all right, sugar, wherever you are. She looked over her shoulder at Pinkie Pie as she was bouncing around the mayor, who hunkered down and had her forelegs over her ears. Dias! Dias nodded and flew over, grabbing Pinkie's tail in her teeth and dragging her back to Ponyville proper, leaving a rather large trench in the ground. Pinky stared off for a second before holding up a hoof and waving to the mayor. Okay then! Well, they're party tomorrow! Let me place on in between Winona's birthday and the opening of the new radio station and final scratch 10-week anniversary! Twilight Megan blinked back into existence. Twilight shook her head and batted her ear with her hoof. Ugh, not as bad as last time. She looked around at the small fenced-in yard. She spotted the solidified rainbow lit up, seeing the hole in the sky. Megan, is this right? Megan stood up and looked around, spinning about. Yeah, it's... She stopped, and her eyes went wide as voices from inside the house started. Oh, no! Danny, I'm not calling you a liar. Did I say that? We've known each other since high school. Heck, you introduced Megan to me. It's just... There was a pause as before Mike's voice began again. I'll hear from you and Molly that Megan was a superhero when she was 12. A female voice called out. Actually, more like 13. There was a pause. What? She was? Megan swallowed and looked down at Twilight. I have to go inside, she half whispered. A crazy smile lit up her features. Well, looks like you'll be getting your explanation after all. She took a step forward, but Twilight held up a foreleg, blocking her. What? Twilight bit her lip and sighed. Megan, you've been to Equestria before, haven't you? She chuckled nervously and looked away. It was your reactions to everything around you, as if you've seen them before, and they changed. She looked back to Megan. Things familiar are gone, and new stuff's in their place. Megan's shoulders and upper body slumped. She patted Twilight at the top of her head, messing up the mane slightly. I'm sorry, Twi. It's just so awkward for me. And I didn't know how you'd react. There didn't seem to be any real time for lengthy discourse on anything what with Applejack Mason and the dragon you told me about on nail. She motioned to the sliding door that led to the kitchen. Twilight, would you like to meet my family? I'd be delighted to, Twilight said, smiling. Great! Megan exclaimed. She reached out for the handle of the sliding door, but paused. I should warn you. The girls like cute things. Well, they love cute things. Danielle will try to hide it by being the eldest. But Michelle, she rolled her eyes, doesn't have both her ways on tales of my adventures over there. And they still own little plush dolls like, you know what. Let's go. With that, she slid open the door. Hi, everyone! Mike paced about his kitchen, tool belt laid on the back of the chair, but hard hat still on his head, full black hair with green tints. He looked back at the table, and one of his oldest friends there. Danny, I'm not calling you a liar. Did I say that? We've known each other since high school. Heck, you introduced Megan to me. It's just... He paused to collect his stumbled thoughts before beginning again. I'll hear from you and Molly that Megan was a superhero when she was 12. Molly, Megan's younger sister by 18 months, spoke up. She still wore a light blue sleeve shirt and khaki pants for the veterinary clinics she worked at, and her short blonde hair was still tied up. Actually, more like 13. She laughed softly, but stopped as everyone looked to her. What? She was. Dang held up a hand. Mike, I know this is hard to believe, and I know you're not calling me a liar, but it really happened. He leaned forward, scooting as far as possible in his wheelchair, in order to reach out and pick up a photo album off the table, holding it up. We've got pictures from the 80s, before Photoshop! Danielle and Michelle stand across from him, Danielle's brown eyes on the foam album. Dad, I don't think they're lying. It's way too elaborate for some dumb prank. And Mom wouldn't do something this insane. She looked around at everyone. Right? The sliding door suddenly opened, drawing everyone's attention to Megan as she entered, wearing muddy boots, a jacket, fingerless gloves, and a backpack, and her personal M1894 rifle slung over her shoulder. She held up a hand and waved meekly, smiling. Hi, everyone. Mike was by her side in an instant, wrapping his arms around her hug. Oh, thank God! He pulled back slightly and looked her over. Are you alright? Where have you been? It's... He trailed off as movement rested his peripheral vision. He looked down as a purple unicorn with violet hair walked in. Hello? The unicorn raised her hoof and called into it. Hello, she said, grinning. My name is Twilight Sparkle, a resident of the land of Equestria. She tapped her horn. As you can see, I'm a unicorn, and I am very happy to meet you all. She blinked several times, and her smile fell slightly. She looked up to Megan. Am I doing it right? Danny leaned back in his wheelchair and slapped his forehead. You went back, he stated. After 20 years, you found your way back over the rainbow. He grabbed the wheels on his chair and pushed back from the table, angrily to face Twilight. He looked down at the pony and held her hand. Name's Danny, Twilight. Pleased to meet you. Twilight smiled sad in a half grin as he trotted over to Danny. Pleased to meet you, Danny, she said, placing her hoof in his hand. The question on her mind stuck in her throat as she swallowed it down. She looked at Megan and Mike. And you must be Mike, she said, forcing a tear into her voice as he extended a hoof to him. Mike took a step away from his wife, looked down at Twilight, and shrugged. Guess this explains where you got all the material for your stories, he said, looking back at Megan, half smiling. He crouched down and gripped her hoof, shaking it. Thanks for looking after Megan, too. She is such a magnet for trouble. Megan scowled as he stood back up and swung him on her shoulder. Hi! She then close to him. You're taking this a lot better than I thought you would. Mike turned his head and looked down at his nose at her. Megan, honey, I learned a long time ago how this world could get. This up there, and I'm going to have some questions for you. But Danny and Molly have filled me in a lot about your adventures. It's just... His voice trailed off and he looked away. Red coloring has already tanned her weathered cheeks. I just don't want to blubber like the idiot I feel at the moment. Megan touched his head and guided his face back. She leaned in and gave him a quick kiss. And I'll be happy to answer all your questions, honey. She looked over and saw Danielle and Mitchell still sitting at the table. Both wore identical expressions of wide-eyed, open-mouthed shock. She stepped over. Girls, are you all right? Michelle suddenly bolted straight out of her chair, turned, running out of the kitchen and up to the stairs in the living room. Danielle, meanwhile, ran into the living room to a large bookcase against the wall. She grabbed a handful of hardcover books and turned back, dancing for the kitchen and dumping it on the table. Our ladies! She held one up and showed off the cover. It was a blue pegasus flying over a grassy field, with the title, My Little Horsey, on top. She waved her hand frantically and grunted, finally smacking the side of her head. Did you do all this stuff, Mom? Megan looked down slightly and bit her lip. She looked back up at her oldest and nodded. Well, yes, Danielle. Her gaze drifted to Molly, then to Danny. She wiped her eyes. It was fun, but sometimes... Michelle ran back into the kitchen, holding a small pink case. She dropped it down in front of Twilight and opened it, pulling out several ribbons and a brush. May I brush your hair, please? She asked, batting her eyes. I won't tug, Twilight. It'll be nice and smooth. She reached around with a ribbon to Twilight's twitching tail. This will look great on you. Twilight's mouth dropped open. She jumped forward. Hey! Danielle shoved over to the refrigerator. You know, where are our manners? She opened the door and pulled out a bag of carrots. Are you hungry? She opened the bag and pulled out a carrot stick, looking like it had just been pulled from the garden. I could peel it if you want, but the horses in the ranch don't mind. Megan slapped the palm of her hand into her face and walked over to Danielle. She placed a hand on her shoulder and guided her away. Danielle, Twilight probably... Actually, I think I am a little hungry, she said. Twilight said. The carrot floated out of Danielle's hands and down to Twilight's mouth, where she took a bite out of it. She chewed and swallowed before telekinetically pulling a chair away from the table and hopping up onto it, struggling a bit before sitting properly and leaning forward. She looked up at Megan, and another chair slid out by magic. Okay, Megan. No dragons, no missing friends, and I'm sure your family might want to hear this too. Another carrot floated over to Twilight. And thanks, Danielle, she said, smiling at the eldest daughter from the room. Danielle beamed. You're welcome. Megan sat down and stapled her fingers together. She opened her mouth, but a hand on her shoulder startled her. She looked up and saw Mike standing next to her, with a glass of water in hand. You look a bit parched, he said, half smiling. She took the water as Mike sat down to her. She took one of the books Michelle had brought in and held it up. It was about 29 years ago. She began showing the cover. I was at Little Big Horse Trails with my horse TJ when a pegasus fell out of the sky and landed in a well. Her gaze drifted off to the right, not focused anymore as memories dragged her way to the surface. I gave her out and she simply said, hello, as appearing like that was the most normal thing in the world. A tiny giggle escaped her lips. She asked me to hop on and said her friends needed help with somebody named Tirak. Mike's eyes widened. Tirak? Michelle and Danielle both swallowed hard and shifted in their chairs. Tirak? Puff said. Twilight scratched her forehead with her hoof. Tirak? Now, where have I heard that name before? Mike leaned back in his chair. Megan, that thing? When the kids read that book, they had nightmares for weeks after. And you... He waved his hands around for a bit. You faced off with that thing? Faced off and beat it, Molly said. She looked over to Megan, who snapped her head around. And that was just the beginning. Twilight leaned her forward. Megan, may I see that book? The book soon flowed over and opened up. Twilight skimmed the words, eyes growing wider while her pupils shrank with each flip of the page. It finally lowered to the table and she swallowed. So, how long ago did you say you were over in Equestria? Megan scratched her chin and arched an eyebrow. It's been about 20 years since I was there. Ever since... Her gaze almost went involuntarily to Danny, but she looked away sharply. Why? She asked, voice cracking. Mike's eyes went from his wife to his oldest friend, but he remained silent for a moment. Several other books floated over to Twilight as he skimmed over several of them. Just wondering. She hopped off the chair. Would you mind if I borrowed these for tonight? I have just a few typos to correct and things to check. She forced the ground into her face. Please? Megan stared at her for a second before slowly nodding. All right, but I'd like to go back tomorrow. Mike spoke up. Wait, don't you have work tomorrow? Megan shrugged. Beth practically owes me the deed to the race by now, Mike. I could well afford to take some personal time off. Twilight nodded as the books stacked themselves behind her. Say 9 o'clock? Megan nodded and rose from her chair. Mike, Danielle, Michelle, and Molly following. They walked out of the kitchen and into the backyard. Twilight stopped before the rainbow and looked up at the sky. By now, the sun had dipped low into the sky, casting shadows. The books landed near her hooves, and her horn began glowing, building up energy. She looked at the family. It was nice meeting you, Twilight said, sincerity in her voice. And I'll be over at 9 a.m. sharp. There was a sudden burst of light. Both Twilight and the books vanished. Danielle looked over to her mother and held a hand up to her mouth, coughing up to it. Gee, Mom, she said between forced hacks. I don't feel so hot. Well, maybe I should stay home for school tomorrow and she nudged Michelle in the ribs, who also began coughing. Typical sisters, planning together. I can relate. Molly's entire body convulsed with laughter. they are so your daughters, she said, wiping her eyes with one hand and slapping Megan on the back with the air. Not like in our day, when we were finding the witches or the smooths or bringing the ponies and the planes in for a talk, right? Megan narrowed her eyes, first glancing at glare at her sister, then her daughters. I believe you have a term paper due next week, Danielle. She jabbed a finger at the sliding door. Inside, you two! You've got homework and chores to do! Danielle and Michelle tramped back inside, followed by Molly, Megan, and Mike. Danny, still at the table, checked his watch. So, let's have dinner, he said, chuckling. Megan stopped in her tracks and slapped her forehead. Ugh, give me. She looked at the clock and rolled her eyes before pulling out her cell phone. She pressed a few buttons and held it up to her ear. Yes, I'd like to order delivery. Mike, meanwhile, opened the fridge and handed Danny a can of soda. So, his voice trailed off as he sat back down. How was it there? Danny shrugged. It could get really weird, but I made some good friends there. He opened the can and took a sip. There was this one filly that was absolutely enraptured every time I read her one of my old history books. He chuckled, but then sobered up. I wonder if she's all right. Or about the others. He looked at Mike. 20 years is a long time in Dream Valley. The monsters there could be quite mean. Mike nodded as his wife sat down. All right, please are here in 20 minutes. He looked at the two men. Sorry, boys, but no meatloaf tonight. Mike thumped his chest and leaned back in his chair, rolling his eyes. Ugh. Danny, help me! He cried out blatantly. I need my meatloaf! Megan bit her lip and swallowed out. After the day I've had, you're lucky I dialed the number! She paused aside, skewing her chair close to Mike. Mac, listen. I know this is a lot to take in all at once. She reached in and took his hand, squeezing. If you have any questions, please, just ask, alright? Mike looked over and returned to squeeze. Hey, no problem. He slid his own chair over closer and wrapped an arm around Megan, pulling her close. It's just a bit much to learn my wife was a major Wonder Woman, that's all. He barked a short laugh before clearing his throat. I always knew you were something special, honey. Just not how much. I wasn't that special, Megan murmured. I beg to differ, Danny interjected, leaning forward with a serious expression on his face. You set the foundations for something, Megan. I don't know what, but Twilight's in the education. Things turned out all right over there, and you are the ones they have to thank for it. Megan wiped her eyes and smiled at Danny. Thanks. She glanced around before leaning in. You would not believe how big Carolina is. It's a city, not a fort. Danny's brow furrowed. So the mages of the rock got their acts together? About time! Twilight and the books appeared once more on the other side of the hole. She found Spike, Applejack, and Rainbow Dash still there. Applejack trotted up and threw her forelegs around Twilight's in a hug. I'm glad you're all right! Twilight leaned into the hug. So am I. She looked around. Where are the others? Dash flew over. Flash and I had to get home to take care of her animals. Rarity still has a big order to fill in for next week. And as for Pinky, she shrugged. Applejack dragged her back. But she went galloping after the mayor, and Pinkie Pie placed the folder into the filing cabinet with her half and headbutted Cluss. I'm done, she said, turning back to Mayor Mare. She hopped over to the now immaculate desk. Anything else, Mayor? The head of Ponyville leaned forward on her desk, reveling in the lack of paper secretarial tidiness. No, Pinky, I'll make sure you get a rather nice check for this. She let out a contented sigh. Oh, I swear, I'd hire you for the case if possible. You're the best secretary I ever had. Pinky's head twisted around. And stop organizing parties? No way! She hopped to her door. See you tomorrow! Twilight shuddered slightly, but focused on the Pegasus. Dash, do you know anything about Cloudsdale history? And if so, what? Dash's head leaned back slightly. She landed on the dirt and sat back on her haunches. Cloudsdale was founded 1,502 years ago by the Sky Clans of the Peak in cooperation with the Ponies of the Plains and the rest of the Equestrian Alliance. The council consisted of Bloodwing, his brothers Deathbane, Killhoof Red, and his wife Firefly, who was from Parasite's estate. Although that part's fact, legend has it that the Magnate get the Pegasi their weather-controlling powers so they can form the clouds and shape them into solid objects. Applejack, Twilight, and Spike stared at her, open-mouthed. How do y'all know riots? Applejack asked after a minute. Dash looked at her. What? Are you joking? It's where I grew up. Of course I know the history. She looked down to Twilight. Why? A book floated up in front of Twilight, and the pages flickered. She finally came to the part of the book and skimmed the text. Megan says she came to Equestria 20 years ago. I find it dubious at best, especially now. She flipped the book around. This talks about the Sky Clans, Bloodwing, and Firefly. Dash's mouth dropped open, and her eyes bugged out. No way! She exclaimed. Are there pictures in there? The pages flipped over to an illustration of a pair of Pegasi. Twilight. Those look just like Bloodwing and Firefly. The book lowered to the ground and closed. Twilight paused at the ground and began pacing. So, what's this mean? 20 years to her is close to 1,500 for us? She stopped at her face contorting in rage. I need answers! She shouted, the book suddenly flying in all directions. Spike walked up and wrapped his stubby arms around her. Don't worry, Twilight. I'm sure Princess Celestia would be able to ask for help. Twilight sighed. She looked up, spotting Canterlot in the distance. I sure hope you're right, Spike. Applejack suddenly cleared her throat. Twilight? What's that? She asked, pointing at Doc with her hoof. Twilight twisted around while Spike looked. She gasped as she saw a big purple bow tied at the base of her tail. Oh boy, she groaned. I need a drink. Celestia flashed into existence in the rather cluttered room. She looked about the window, saw Luna's night outside, and admired her sister's lovely handwork before looking to the lone occupant of the room. Excellent! I apologize. No, stop bowing! No bowing now, and be quiet for my sake! She waited for the other pony to be silent before pacing about. I have need of your special talent, my young pony. She explained the plan. And of course you and your players will be well compensated. Now, can you get ready for tomorrow? Just nod if you can. I did not. She bit her lip to stop the laugh from bubbling inside. Oh, this will be good. Very good. I shall speak to the other two momentarily. She leaned in and sprang her wings out. I trust I have your silence on the matter? Yes. Good. She closed her wings back to closer by. Excellent. This has been a long time coming. And with that, she vanished into the ether.